You can enter into life, or you can enter into death. But the choice is yours. Will you enter into life, or will you enter into death? The scriptures tell us to enter by the straight gate. And it says the straight gate leads you into a narrow path that leads to life. The straight gate leads to the narrow path, and the narrow path leads you to life. But then it tells you not to enter by the wide gate, because the wide gate leads to a wide path, and the wide path leads to death. So you have one gate that is straight and it leads into life, and you have another gate that is wide and it leads to death. Which gate have you entered? Which gate have you come through in order to live the life that you're living right now? Jesus said, I am the door. And he said, if any man does not enter by the door, but he enters in some other kind of way, he's a thief and a robber. One thing that has had people confused for a long time is the thought that entering into life is talking about heaven, or the thought that entering into death is talking about hell, which means that scripture would be talking about after death. But the two entries are not after death entries. The two entries are right now entries. Right now. Are you going to choose to enter life, or are you going to choose to enter death? What we see going on this earth right now is different people who are living different ways. Some people are living after a choice to enter life, and some people are living after a choice to enter death. So you got these people living for life, but you have other people living for death. You have people that's living for life, they're on their way to life. And you have people who are living for death, and they're on their way to death. Jesus made a statement to some people, and he said, you are of this world. I am not of this world. Now, that raises a question in my mind, because you're saying, Jesus, that you are not of this world, and you're telling these people that they are of this world, but all of you are standing right there together. How are you standing right there together in the same place, but you're saying you're not of this world, but you're telling them they are of this world? The reason is, even though there are people right here on the earth together, some have entered into life, and some have entered into death. Because this is a hard truth. But a lot of people have come through the wide gate in order to live the way that they're living right now. And because you came through the wide gate, you are on your way to death. I know that we're right here together. But if you came in through the wide gate, you are on your way to death. If you came in through the straight gate, you are on your way to life. A lot of people are working on the same job, but some are on their way to life and some are on their way to death. I know there are people in some of the same situations, but some are on their way to life because they entered the straight gate, and some are on their way to death because they entered the wide gate. I know we go to the same church, but some are on their way to life and some are on their way to death. I know we're a part of the same ministry, but there are people in that ministry that are on their way to life, and there are people in that same ministry that are on their way to death. And if you are living through that wide gate, you cannot just jump over and decide you're going to live according to life. You cannot just jump over and try to get what people on the path to life get. If you want to be on the path to life and you want to be able to have the things that the people have who are on the path to life, you got to go back and enter through the door. You got to go back and enter through the straight gate. That's why you got a lot of people who are trying to live their life according to the scriptures. They're trying to live their life based on God, and they can't do it. They're struggling to do it. They're struggling to get out of sin. They're struggling to break bad habits. You know why you can't get out of sin? Because you didn't enter in to life. You didn't enter the straight gate. You entered the wide gate. You're on your way to death. And on this path to death, you can't do what the scriptures say do. You know why you can't break the bad habits? Because you didn't go back and enter through the door. You didn't go back and enter through the straight gate. You didn't get in here through the truth. You didn't get in here through knowledge and understanding of God's system. So you're trying to do something that's impossible because you're on your way to death. You can't please God on your way to death. Go back and enter in through the door. You can't serve God on your way to death. Go back and get knowledge and understanding. You can't live by faith on your way to death. Go back and enter the straight gate. That's the only way to get on this path to life. And this is exactly what we see. That's why we see so many people who just can't do it. Been in church for years, but never entered the straight gate. been going to the altar for years, crying out and praying for years, but they never entered the straight gate. Been struggling, scraping, crawling, clawing, trying to get the truth, trying to understand the truth, trying to do things the way you know you should, trying to do right the way that you're being taught to do right. And you can't do it all these years and you still don't have it. All of these years and you still don't understand it because you didn't enter in to life. You did not enter in through the straight gate. That's why I don't fool with so many people. So when you ask me, did you hear what Pastor such and such said? No, I don't listen to him because he didn't enter the straight gate. And I can look at you. It don't even take me long to look at a person and see you came through the wrong door. You came through the wrong gate. You want to go over there to the party with these people? I sure don't. Because they're living their lives after coming through the wide gate. We're out here together. Y'all going to the party together. But I'm not going with you because I'm on a different path than you're on. I'm on my way to life. That's why I don't want to hear you preach if you didn't come through the straight gate. I don't want to hear you sing and exalt the Lord if you didn't come through the straight gate. I don't care nothing about listening to you speak in tongues and prophesy if you never came through the straight gate. I don't want to hear what God showed you and told you if you never came through the straight gate. This is how people are getting messed up because they're listening to people who said they are pastors. They said they are bishops. They told you that they're an apostle, but they never entered the straight gate. They're on their way to death, and you're sitting up listening to them. They're on their way to death, and you love to hear from them. They're on their way to death because they entered through the wide gate, but you're in love with them. How is it that you don't recognize the difference between the life you're living and the life they're living? You must have come through the wide gate yourself. How is it that you don't recognize that this recording artist came through the wide gate and they don't live or believe like you? You must have came through the wide gate yourself. How is it that you don't recognize that Pastor Bobo is not living according to the truth or not preaching according to the truth? You must be on the path to death just like that pastor. There's only two entrances. You can enter the straight gate to the narrow path that leads to life, or you can enter the wide gate to the broad path that leads to death. If you decide to live your life through that wide gate, on that broad path, on your way to death, you gonna get what the broad path gives you. So when you start going through in your mind and you can't be delivered, just know it's because you're on the path where demons have a right to overtake your mind. When you start going through in your body and you can't be healed, just know that you're on the path where demons have a right to attack your body. You're on the path where there is no healing. When people in your life start hating and messing you up in different areas of your life, lying on you and overcoming you, just know that you're on the path to death, where they have a right. They are permitted to overtake you, overcome you. They are permitted to knock you down because you came through the wide gate on your way to death. This is why you can be with other people, going places, and right there together, something good happens for you. And they're like, man, why didn't I see that? Oh yeah, I just picked up $100 right there on the ground. They didn't see it because they're on a totally different path than you, even though y'all are right there together. This is why when certain things happen to God's people, God's true believers, those people that you tell don't even understand how that can happen. Because they're not living through the straight gate. They're living through the wide gate. They're not living on the narrow path. They're living on the wide path, the broad path. They're not living on their way to life. They're living on their way to death. And they cannot understand how we live. They cannot understand how blessed we are. They cannot understand why good things constantly happen for us. So which path are you taking? Are you on your way to life, or are you on your way to death? If you check yourself and realize that you're on your way to death, all you got to do is go back and get wisdom, knowledge, understanding. All you got to do is go back and enter in at the straight gate. Enter in to the narrow path that leads to life.